Just this past year, Gustavus has acquired more students as well as applications than any other year within its 150 years, providing an education to its students. And what it sounds like, the future expansion of the Gustavus community is becoming more probable. It seems to me like our school is becoming a little overwhelmed with all this new expansion and bigger student bodies and so forth. Because I actually have a couple friends that are being sophomores and they're living in Pittman Hall next year, which is a freshman hall, and which is extremely unfortunate and embarrassing. According to the College Prowler's site, which gives statistics on colleges and their national rankings, Gustavus had a total of 3,212 applicants, and of that, only 2,259 were actually accepted. Gustavus overall does a good job allowing a variety of students to come pursue an education here, regardless of their socioeconomic status back home. The main problem with the admissions office is that the low-income students have a hard time making the payments that Gustavus sends out, which ultimately has a negative effect on their priority number. They are ultimately last to choose their course and housing selection after their financial success in finding a way to pay their bills, leaving them with a limited amount of opportunities. Not only does this method restrict a person's freedom and their grades in the classroom potentially, it keeps the diversity rates on campus low. Alongside with that, a student can't receive as much grant money as they could have in scholarships because institutions oftentimes have a limit that they can't exceed, which is a big turnoff to prospecting Gusties. We can easily assume that most underprivileged students never really came from a wealthy background in the first place, since they usually stay around the same financial class throughout their life. Jamar Clark stated in her article in the Georgetown Commons on May 1st, 2007, that there is often a lack of educational language being spoken in these homes, and these young adults have more trouble than others grasping and becoming immune to larger vocabulary, creating a negative outlook on prolonging one's future educational skills. So after they do decide to go to college and get accepted and everything, they have to worry about practice tests and those fees, which can be extremely expensive and add up quickly for these families. From practice tests to practice books, the actual test, the amount of money adds up extremely fast. According to the College Facts website, there are 2,719 four-year colleges located in the U.S., and all of them ask for an ACT or SAT score, which many of them base their decision off of, along with the student's GPA and other things like that. On average, the How Many Colleges Should I Apply To website, which gives inside information on the application process itself. A student will apply to at least 5 to 8 different colleges before making their final decision. Along with that, the ACT costs $34 and $50 with the writing prompt included, which colleges obviously prefer because they get a better perspective of where you're at educationally. So after all that, that's like basically a short synopsis of what they go prior to even going to college. And when they do, they face these problems for applying for housing and applying for classes, which is extremely unfair because they're not as wealthy as the other students. So on March 1st, 2012, I spoke with Virgil Jones, who is the Assistant Dean of Students and the Director of the Diversity and Multicultural Programs here in Gustavus. And he said that this is an issue of equity exceeding equality. Low-income students are getting their bills paid, but at a later date than the rest of the student body, because it takes them longer to figure out a way to pay them. Whether the admissions office chose this method because it's the most simple and it's easy and it works, or they feel it's the most appropriate out of ignorance, it's not. It's extremely unfair to these students, and it's taking advantage of those who really aren't wealthy in the first place. That can't help it. So after I spoke with Virgil, together we came up with 3 plausible solutions to help even out the playing field for disadvantaged students that can easily be put into effect by next fall. One possible approach Gustavus could make is lowering the deposit rate for low-income families and increasing the number of payments sent out to create a more equal opportunities for these students. Because it's a lot easier to acquire a small amount of money in segments than large quantities at one time. The second solution Virgil suggested would be to delay the due dates of these deposits further back, so for low socioeconomic families, so they have more time to obtain the money instead of a short amount of time. Both of these solutions would require the admissions office to develop some kind of number that can distinguish a lower class family from the others. But after this is done, it should be extremely simple, fair process. The third and final solution I came up with is to distribute fee waiver information, disadvantaged families, describing the benefits of these waivers. If you don't know what a fee waiver is, it covers the cost of testing material for these students. So obviously that adds up quickly and can save them a lot. So if they took the ACT 3 times, for example, only you save them $150, which is very beneficial for these students. This again would require the admissions office to spend a little money taken out of their budget for brochures and sending it to these students, but would be a big help to them. So overall, again, students from a lower class background are receiving last picks on housing and classes due to flaws within the admissions process. Many students, rich or poor, are not entirely aware that this is occurring at Gustavus, and this makes it extremely difficult for a lower class student to make great strides in their education, simply because they're not receiving the same opportunities and attention as wealthier students are. The process before entering college alone is stressful enough for these families, and with problems concerning the ACT payments, SAT payments, whatever you choose to take, and their lives prior to even attending college. According to Gustavus's website, it shows a minimal 7% of the student body's diversity, and since the tuition at Gustavus is increasing 5.2%, the percentage of this diversity will only likely decrease. This freedom gap is ultimately hurting students and sustaining a distinct economic barrier of middle and upper class students on campus. It is a problem of equity over equality, and therefore it deserves addressing. So to readdress my solutions again, by decreasing the amount of payments and increasing the number of payments, or to delay the due dates further back, so these families would have more time to acquire the money, to obtain it and send it in, so they could get a better priority number, would be more probable. And submitting fee waiver brochures would save them money, so they could use that money instead to use it for their deposit rates. Because for the wealthier families, it's a lot easier because they get a check in the mail, they ask their parents to sign a check for $300, and then they send it in, and no problem. These students, it takes time, and it's extremely negatively affecting the way they study here. So by all these solutions being taken, it can make a huge impact and difference in their lives. So my friends who are living in Pittman next year, that's what they feel like. They're helpless in this sense, where the housing process is based on random, but it's really not random for these kids since they're already at a disadvantage right away. So when students determine that they're going to further their educational skills here at Gustavus, they come in with high expectations, especially at a private college. But those self-standards are not met because of flaws in the admissions process. If you had the opportunity to make things fair and just for everybody, why wouldn't you do it?